Great. Hi everyone who is watching this webinar right now. Today, together with Tech, we will talk about the hiring fresh grad topics. Quick intro about myself and Avomind. So, my name is Uliana. I work as a recruiter at Avomind. So, we are a recruitment agency. Basically, companies are working with us so we can hire tiers of talents for them. We are operating globally, so our HiQ is in Berlin, but we have our remote teams spread within the whole European region, within the Asia Pacific region, the Americas as well. In terms of the companies, we're also working with a pretty wide range, right? So we are working with startups, scale-ups, up to larger enterprises. And the reason why we decided to have this webinar today is, first of all, because I myself working a lot with grad graduates, a lot with junior candidates, and I just find this as a huge passion of mine. And as I was working on one of my UK projects, I think it was half a year ago. This is how we met with Tag, and this is how we started working together within the hiring process for the position he's working at this point. So yeah, Tag, do you want to introduce yourself as well? Tell a bit about yourself here.
Yeah, sure. So I am a recent graduate. I graduated from UCL in 2023. I studied law, didn't really do the kind of the usual kind of pathway into law. Wanted to get something kind of closer to business, kind of understand about both how the law can kind of operate within more of like an entrepreneurial mindset and whatnot. And yeah, was in a job previously, wasn't really close to what I really wanted. And yeah, I was contacted by Uliana, and luckily I got the job.
Yeah. Luckily for like all of us. Yeah, thank you, Jack. Yeah, I mean, the idea of the webinar today, why we want to talk about this general like agenda is to show this thing for both sides. So for candidates that okay, we do actually have a lot of great opportunities at Avomind for entry level candidates, because this is like one of my points of focus at this point, and also for businesses if you are looking for young talent to join your team, on this like example, on this experience with Tag, that actually the young talent are like super great. I love working with the young talent side, and I just wanted to speak here about this one to again use this case as an example to also show this again, both sides here. So about this one, about your previous experience with carriers, as you mentioned, you've also been working already on your career before joining your current company. So you're at Alpha Size at this point, right? So could you
Yeah.
tell us a bit more about your job search experience previously before connecting with Avomind?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think with everyone, it's quite difficult, especially when you're like a young graduate. A lot of the entry level roles, they're asking for 1 year experience, stuff like that. And it's
Yeah.
really difficult to find the true, I want to say true calling, but that sounds slightly dramatic. So I'm going to say like something that's definitely closer to what you're interested in. I think a lot of the times, especially reading job descriptions and whatnot, they can either oversell and stuff like that. So these are the things that I kind of battled and combated. I think these stuff like LinkedIn Easy Apply is a bit too easy and a bit too kind of
Mhm.
lulls you into a false sense of security. And yeah, I was admit it was difficult. It was difficult. And I think the issue is I definitely came out of uni thinking, okay, well, I've got a strong degree, I've got some academics behind me now. And it's just having that kind of like taking a step back, having a few maybe rejections and whatnot as well, and being able to pick yourself up afterwards, I think is a really key thing that I took out of the many rejections, I'll say.
Mhm. Yeah, I can see this truly. I mean, I think this is the main issue with this entry level positions, because they're not really entry levels. Like it's
Yeah.
always about this, like, yes, actually we need at least 1 year of experience, and you're a bit lost because oh my God, you just graduated.
Where am I meant
Where
to get the
where have
one
I
year from?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so when I connected you eventually, like from your perspective, how did it work for you when we started working together from this interview process with the role of Alpha Sides?
Yeah, I mean, it was number one very flattering that someone actually saw my profile and thought I'd be a good fit, which was great. And yeah, I think we got the ball rolling straight away. I know we had a call during one of my lunch breaks about kind of about the role and what was like required of it, why I'd be a great fit. Hopefully, I mean, eventually I was, which was great. But I think the great thing was like it was very clear. I knew what I was going into. I knew this is the next round of the interview. This is what you'll like, who you'll be speaking to. And I kind of knew what the company was about by speaking and understanding more about it was by speaking to Uliana. I think the great thing about that was it was more so guidance rather than hand holding. I think a lot of the times you can get recruiters who are almost trying to like force the job onto you.
Mhm,
But the great thing was that I was like guided through it. I wasn't forced it. I was able to make my own opinion of the company. And
mhm.
luckily I loved it, which was a great thing as well. And I love it now too.
Yeah, thank you. Glad to hear that. Yeah, and regarding this guidance, what do you think is important to highlight when you don't have the support, for example, from such a recruitment agency? What was the main maybe ideas you highlighted for yourself
Mm.
when we've been talking together about the position when you were going through this process yourself?
Mm. I think it's always about going above and beyond. I think in terms of like the actual application and whatnot, I had the job description in front of me, but it's more about learning about what the company is, what they do, what they stand for. I know particularly with Alpha Science, one of the key things that sold it for me was actually two things. It was we do this thing called Knowledge for Good, which is like kind of pro
Mhm,
bono work, giving back to the community. And another thing that we do is like kind of like looking into like how our protection and like just our security is. And I think learning and like developing from watching their videos, reading their websites, going on little LinkedIn stalks and whatnot of people who
mhm,
work there, and really learning about the people who are interviewing you. I think are the great things that we can do. So I can give you an example. I learned for my final interview who the gentleman that was interviewing me, what his career history was like, what his interests were from his LinkedIn and
mhm,
from what past experience. I think the main thing is like you just have to do your research. Like it's one of those things where even though it's a job interview, it almost feels like homework, but you're
mhm,
getting so much information out of it where you can give back into the interview. And it'll show them that you really care about the company. It will show them that you've taken your time to learn about them, taken time to kind of really, really, I guess, yeah, make yourself knowledgeable about them and put your best foot forward for hopefully your first day as well.
mhm, mhm, mhm. Yeah. Do you where did you get it from, the idea that you need to really research on this? Because when I'm working with fresh grad candidates, right, it's not the common sense from what I see that you have to do your research not only about the company but also about the recruiters. Like, did you get it from your previous experience when doing the job search? Did you get it like throughout the process with Avomind?
I think, to be honest, that came a lot from number one. You were telling me kind of like just make sure you're prepared. That was great, obviously.
Mhm,
It also came from, if I'm going to be completely honest as well, I realized that previously in my other like job interviews, perhaps I wasn't as well prepared as I wanted to be. And I think it came from a lot of trial and error. I think interviewing and like especially like kind of speaking like that is very much like a skill that you develop in a way. And I feel
mhm,
like it's something that I definitely didn't have practice doing during university. And my job interviews were for the local pub, like as a part-time job. So I think
mhm,
the reality is until you get into that situation where you're interviewing, you're speaking to people, um, you won't really know what it's like. Because I think as well, like I'd read all of the stuff like the star interview method and stuff like that,
mhm,
but they can only go so far. I mean, there's only so far a formula can take you, and at that point, what I learned was from, I mean, a number of interviews at least, was to really let your personality show and like be who you are, because they're not going to hire you based on you following a formula of how to answer a question. They're going to
mhm,
hire you about your, I don't know, life, like your experiences and what you've done and how it's shaped you. And I think that kind of individuality that definitely needs to come across as well.
mhm, Yeah, this maybe is also leading to one of my further questions about this preparation part, right? So, do you feel that it was learning by heart thing, or rather deep understanding? Because I mean, you already answered it partly. Because
Mm.
reason why I'm asking is because I think that when you are graduating from the university, you are keeping this idea that okay, some information can be learned by heart, and you can just
Mm.
strictly say it like as a poem, and this would be it. So
Yeah.
how do you see this as a part of preparation?
I think there's obviously value in like learning things, memorizing things. But I think personally for me, I really like kind of, I guess I don't want to say like improvising, but almost like I like to play off people's conversation because at the end of the
Mhm,
day, another thing people want from like an interview is that they don't want it to be very formulaic. They don't want it to be like, oh, you've memorized something. They want a conversation. They want to know that you're a person rather
mhm,
than a robot, I guess. And I think so
mhm,
it's all great. Like I'm definitely an advocate for learning things and like memorizing things, but also having the ability to then just make a conversation of it, learning about someone's interests, asking why they've done things, I think is a really, really powerful thing. But not only just in interviewing, I think just in general, like in your professional conversations,
mhm,
hopefully one day someone's talking to like higher ups and colleagues and whatnot. They want it, they don't want you to just be formulaic and boring. They want to have a person that they'll remember. I know like
mhm,
one of the things I speak to a lot of the C-level executives, and and one of the things that I was told actually was tell him a story and tell him something to remember you by it. Because I'm in a company with 1,800, 1,900 people. I don't want to just be a number there. I want to be
mhm.
someone that they can really like look to, a voice of reason, a point of information, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it's a really important idea here that you need to stand out at this point, especially if you're joining a large enterprise such as Alpha Size. So, what do you think? What do you think also helped you to become this person who they will see as, as this star when they are talking with like tens, hundreds of
Mm,
candidates on the same position? Because like the flow of grads who want to join huge companies is it's a really huge. So
mm,
what would you call your own idea of how to stand out, and maybe sort of advice for people who would prepare
mm,
for this, if it's not like something they have and something they need to really learn to
mm.
how to do.
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing actually. I think well, especially in terms of now, like everyone's graduating with like great universities, everyone's graduating with great degrees, and people are graduating with like a year experience already doing their like summer schemes and their
Mhm,
internships and whatnot. I think the real thing that I tried to do at least was to be like unapologetically myself and just staying true
mhm,
to myself. I think if you've got stories, say them, tell them. I think one of the great things that I always mentioned was so I kickbox part time. I used to fight a lot, and I was asked like, what shows that I was resilient, and I answered, well, I've been knocked out. Like I've been hit, I've been knocked down, I've fought, I've lost in front of 1,000 people, I've won in front of people. Like these are things that, albeit not everyone's gonna be a kickboxer, but these are things where perhaps like, when there's a question about resilience or like character or personality, don't be so close to the job or don't be so professional in a way. You
mhm,
can you can talk about like your extracurricular. You can say, "Oh, I play football. I dance. I do gymnastics, stuff like that." There's so many things that can make someone who they are, and I think to get a full image of the person, you need to show that in an interview as well. I remember
mhm,
I actually told the general counsel at the final interview a bit more about my interests and why I wanted to work there. And it ended up opening up more conversation where we can now have a conversation about our interests just on desk now and talk to each other a lot as well, which I think is a really powerful tool as well.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, when you're talking about this activities besides school, I find it super important because as a fresh graduate, there is not a experience you need to focus on, but rather your other activities slash your motivation specifically, because it's not like your CV has to be filled with a bunch of stuff. It's not what is expected. Rather,
Mm,
I feel that it is expected from my perspective as a recruiter that the person, the fresh grad, the junior person can show their transferable skills, as you
mm,
mentioned right now, that, okay, every story can be transferred to the relevant ideas
exactly.
like you are sharing.
No, I completely agree. I think you hit the nail on the head there. Every story can be related to. I think one of the funny ones is I used to relate me working back in a pub and having a really hectic shift full of horrible people, and it's something that I can work under pressure. And I think it's
Mhm.
just that kind of thing. Just think outside the box. I think everyone's going to be so narrow-minded and formulaic. I think just try and think of things to be different because no one wants everyone to be the same. I
Right.
think, and especially in a world now where, as I said, so many people have like the same academic, same kind of experience. You got to really think about what makes you different and what makes you stand out from the rest. It's not going to be, oh, I've got a 2-1 from UCL Law.
Mhm.
It's going to be, oh, I fought in front of these people. I played rugby in front
Mhm.
of these people. I play guitar in a band, that kind of thing. Like
Mhm.
it's going to be something that no one will look at you and think, wow, this is what this guy does. But now you've said it and you've related it to the job. I think people will now like kind of almost value you have a character and a personality as well.
Right, right. I think it's also important to highlight that it's important to balance between like highlighting this extracurricular activities and like not sharing random stuff about, oh yeah, my hobby is like
Of course.
skiing. Yeah, it's like it's a huge problem because, okay, like it's logical that fresh grads don't have an experience in interviewing, and the information when you're googling it, it's pretty mixed up, I feel.
Hmm.
So yeah, like this balance and this relevance of the information you're sharing, like I just want to also bring it up because I feel that this is an issue which just pops up often.
Hmm.
And yeah, when you're sharing all of these examples, how you can present yourself, is it something that you are just thinking about right during the interview, or it's something you're preparing in advance, like you are thinking about the possible questions that might
Hmm.
appear and you're like, okay, this could be an example for this one. How do you work with this?
I think I think the reality is that a lot of interviews are the same. And I think a lot of you realize very soon that there's kind of why are you good for the company? Why do you want to join here? What
Hmm.
makes you a good fit? And what do you think what do you think you'll be like and where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? I think there's some very core questions that you can
Hmm.
really base like you can really set answers to it. And having that kind of skeleton framework of okay, if they ask this, this is what I can say, but then I can talk about this and whatnot was a really, really key thing. But I think that all came from the fact that I had interviewed a lot
Hmm.
before. And yeah, you see the patterns quite a lot, 100%.
hmm Do you think it's possible to learn this pattern from the other's perspective, from like watching videos on YouTube, or like the only way is to just get through tons of interviews, fail them, and then like, okay, yeah, now I get how it works.
Yeah, no, they're 100%. Social media, YouTube, TikTok, they all have like kind of people practicing interview prep. You kind of see kind of sample interview questions and whatnot. Also, lots of companies do like kind of have a video of like a sample interview on their website and whatnot.
Mhm.
So yeah, one of the 100% don't you have to do your research. I think that's probably the number one or certainly up there priority when you are kind of preparing for these kind of things. Yeah, definitely do your
Mhm.
research. Look at YouTube. Look at stuff like I think it's Glassdoor. Yeah, Glassdoor
Yeah.
has loads of people who've like either gone for interviews and stuff like that and kind of talk about their experiences as well. Um, and really try and build yourself a big picture and build yourself the bigger picture of what the company is, like kind of almost like a company map in a way.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. And what do you think, like a top three, if you could give a top three info you have to know when coming to the interview, like besides the name of the position you're
Mm.
hiring for?
Of course, of course. I think the top three things I could say about like kind of going into an interview would be, I think number one is make sure you ask questions and like engage with the interviewer. But not like people have some really terrible questions. And honestly, there's like the
You
really
tell
basic
me.
ones. I think one of the ones that I like asking about in an interview is like to really kind of understand the whole view of a company is what frustrates you about the role. What in your day-to-day kind of working life would you want to change that would improve your workflow? And that's one of the key questions I always ask. Another one's like, what to get myself fully prepared for my first day at the job. What kind of things do you want me to improve on, upskill on? What kind of skills do you want to see from someone just starting the role? And where do you see them 6 months time, 12 months time? And how are
Hmm.
these skills developed? I think really trying to understand the crux of the role through the questions that you're asking, not just, oh, how much is the salary? How many days we got working from home? Which are essentially really like
Hmm.
basic questions, but be inquisitive, like really try and delve into it.
Yeah.
The second thing I would say is just know your interviewer, learn their background, learn where they came from. I think that they're always going to be very impressed if you ask them why did you leave this law firm to go in-house into a
Hmm.
legal and compliance team, say for instance. And then finally, I think just no, read the job description is your best friend. Read the skills that are on the job description, what they want to see, and no matter what, always tie your experience back to that. I
Hmm.
think, say for example, they say, "Oh, you need to be analytical and you need to have an analytical mindset." What have you done that is analytical? I've done X, Y, Z, which makes me this, which is why I'd be a great fit for the role, which is why I really want this position.
Hmm.
And if I could give a fourth one as well, just say it. Just tell the interviewer, I want this job. I want this job because at the end of the day, they won't know unless you've told them, really. And you really want to sell it to them. You want them to believe that you are going to be there for the next 20 years or
Yeah.
however long. You want them to really believe in you and believe that if you offer the job, you'd take it in a heartbeat, I think, as well.
Yeah, definitely. No, I would say that this is one of the best advices I could give myself when preparing for the interview. This selling point when you're just going right through the job description and literally telling directly that, okay, it's written that they need to be analytical thinkers.
Mm,
Okay, you can literally use it as a keyword and go by,
exactly.
yes, I'm actually an analytical thinker because
Yeah.
and yeah, I would say that this is the main, let's say, strategy how to prepare, and this is like the easiest way if you don't want to, do a huge research, spend like weeks when preparing for the job interview. Like it's enough just to forcefully read through the stuff which is just there.
Mm.
So yeah, definitely agree here. Maybe to sort of switch from like what was super great and what went amazingly for you, I would just like to hear a bit more about the challenges you've been facing, because I think it's important also here to highlight that, okay, it's not like the easiest thing to do, because like
Mm.
obviously it's a super hard path, especially like the interview process you've been into was a pretty long one, right?
Yeah.
So could you tell me like about maybe examples when it didn't go as you planned it to be, and how did it worked out? Maybe how did Avomind support it within this process? Maybe anything you might be thinking about in this direction
Mm.
specifically.
Yeah, I think one of the main things, and I think you can attest to this a lot as well, Liana, is I'm quite impatient, and it would taking a really long time to get back. I think the interview process for me was about a month and a half or 2 months from like start
Hmm.
to finish. And at that point, I was really stressing. Like I can really get stressed. I was like, have I got the job? Why can't they just tell me if I've got the job? Why can't they just tell me if they're rejecting me
Hmm.
and stuff like that? And it was, I think that one of the great things was just tempering expectation from you to me, and also just like almost like a calming thing, like it's okay, like it will work out, like I'm sure you did amazing. And it was like these like small words of encouragement that really kind of helped throughout the process, 100%. I think in terms of like where I've had like negative interview experiences, say for instance, is it's all about kind of, I think one of the things I kind of really like put in my mindset is like if they didn't give you the job or you're not successful, say, it happens for a reason. They don't
Mhm,
see that you're a right fit for the role, which does that really mean you're going to be happy in that position if
mhm,
already like you're not really a great fit? And I think the one thing is I think having been in a lot of like kind of interview processes and stages and whatnot, I think people can, and grads definitely can be really tough on themselves and really defeatist when things go wrong. And I think one of the things is always like, don't like kind of kick yourself, always try and get back on the horse and keep going. I was actually going to pause my like job search until I found this position. So a lot of the times like things do come and your hard work does pay off if you're doing the right things, you know.
mhm, mhm. And throughout your job search, have you ever faced this part that you're like, okay, I cannot kind of do this anymore if you face like a lot of the rejections, or
Mm.
generally, like how do you manage this rejection flow if there is?
Mm. I mean, I think the thing to remember is we're all recent graduates. We're all 21, 22, 23 years old. We're so young in our professional journey. Like, this isn't going to be the end of the world. Like, yeah,
Mhm,
everyone's got number one, have like a great support network around you, but also recognizing that this is going to be a 40-year career plus, and knowing how retirement and like interest rates are going up and whatnot. Um, so yeah, it doesn't need to be a rush. Always kind of like really try. I think a lot of the times people do get bogged down, like really trying to getting into work where maybe work might not be like the kind of roles that they're looking at or like the things that they're looking into aren't really the best thing. And I
mhm,
think if you have to be really focused and really diligent about what you're doing. And I think when you follow all the right steps, like it does just come together. Like it came together for me, and I've been in this role now for over 6 months. I have my
mhm,
probation meeting of my last day of probation tomorrow, that kind of thing. So it does come, and it really does kind of when it does, it will like it's almost like an avalanche. It will keep rolling down, and it eventually yeah, it happens.
mhm, mhm. Yeah. How do you feel your mindset and generally how you transition from this graduate to professional stage? Do you feel that something changes in terms of how do you see the career itself? How do you see the past experience have been?
Yeah, no, I have less time now. I don't have time to see friends or no, I'm joking, I'm joking. Yeah, I think the one thing that I really noticed about like now being professional is almost like the way I speak, the way I carry myself is a lot more kind of business savvy, I want to say. I know I came in very like fresh faced and like tried to speak to everyone on my first couple of days, but then like kind of tailoring how you speak to people, understanding, actively listening, like more so proactive as well, rather than being reactive in conversation and stuff like that. You really kind of you do see the change, and I think definitely my friends have seen the change where I'm the way I speak, the way I carry myself. But yeah, 100%. Like you feel the responsibility, and you feel like you feel like you're finally becoming like a proper adult as well. I think which is a great thing because in university, maybe I'm speaking for myself, but I definitely do see like a massive change from even me a year ago to me now, 100%.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. And if you had a chance to speak with this person who you've been 1 year ago, what do you think you could advise yourself, or maybe just tell yourself in general?
I think the issue with what I was doing before was I was casting a wide net and hoping to catch one thing rather than being targeted, maybe harpooning, and like really tailoring and like focusing on things. I think what
Hmm.
I'd tell me from a year ago is number one, change your haircut. Number two, be don't beat yourself up. Like things happen, and be more focused because you can't give 110% to 20 different applications rather than
Mhm.
really focusing on the five that you love, the positions that you really want, and then learning everything inside out so that you have like almost ammo to a gun. I know this about the company. I can tailor it to this and I can say this and I can converse with them. Because the more you know about the company, the more you know about the people you're interviewed by, the more you know about the position, the easier it becomes. And you only get that if you're really focused on it as well.
Absolutely. I believe that it's a great advice not to apply for 100 jobs and then not be able to focus on any of them, because I think
Mm,
it's a common mistake, because it feels like, okay, the more I apply for, the more chances I have, which is like not really it, because I feel that if you're applying for 5 positions and for each of the positions you will go in a deep research, you will drop a message to a recruiter in each of this company, you will likely
mm,
have like 4 interviews, and I don't think you will have like even one if you will try to target 50 companies
mm.
at the same time. So yeah, absolutely. So yeah, Tad, do you think, is there anything you would like to add in general to say to like
Mm.
fresh grads who are starting their career right now, who are being in the middle of their job search, or who are just, in this starting path at this point?
I mean, I think the one main thing is always see the bigger picture. This is going to be, as I said, a 40, 50 year career at this point. Like, really don't kick yourself and don't beat yourself up if things don't go your way. I think one of the great things that I kind of learned throughout this process, especially with it being 2 months long, is I learned a lot more patience, and kind of like understanding as well of how these processes work as well. And I think having that patience with yourself and having that kind of care for yourself while also not kind of beating yourself up and being too negative. Because at the end of the day, when you become negative, you become desperate and you might like take a job that you're not interested in and whatnot as well. And at the end of the day, like you want happiness and fulfillment out of your position. You want that to be tailored, you want to know what you want. And yeah, I think those are the key things that people just got have like because like, right now I've got like loads of my friends are also graduating from their masters and whatnot. And they ask me like, oh, like, can you get me a job at the company? Is this, that, the other?
Mhm.
Like, do you really want to work here? Or do you just want a job? And I think that's a question that we all need to ask. Like, do you really want to work where you're applying, or are you just desperate for a job? And I think,
Mhm.
yeah, having that differentiation and knowing where you see yourself is the main thing. Exactly that. Just look for the bigger picture always.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ted. I find this super, super insightful, and I absolutely agree with pretty much everything you've mentioned. And
Perfect.
yeah, I would say that this was a super great chat today. I am super happy we had this webinar.
Mm.
And yeah, to finish it all up again, if you want to talk with any of us regarding the hiring process for the fresh graduate position, just drop us a message on LinkedIn. Again,
Yeah.
I'm always super happy. I'm always super happy to support and always super happy to go throughout the hiring process for any of like tens of our positions we have at Avomind for the grad grads. And yeah, thank you all so much for watching this one, and hope to see you in our social media. Bye bye.
Take care, guys.